Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we're diving into the world of advertisements.
Ads, right?
Yeah, ads. And to do that, we found
This really interesting podcast episode,
it's all about.
the IELTS speaking test.
Well,
It's not just for people taking the test.
No, not at all. We found some really great insights into how we all think about ads, like in our everyday lives,
Absolutely.
One of the first things that stood out.
To me, too, just
Right.
how many different feelings people have about ads, right?
Yeah, it's like a
Love-hate thing.
totally. 1 minute you're like, "Ooh, that's a cool product."
And next you're like, ugh, this ad is so annoying.
Yeah, exactly. And in this episode, one of the speakers, John, he talks about
Finding this language learning app through an ad.
any,
He loved it.
yeah.
But then he also talked about how frustrated he gets with like the same ads over and over again,
Oh, when you're streaming, right?
especially when you're streaming. You're just trying to watch your show.
And then, bam, same ad again.
Exactly. But the episode goes deeper than just that surface level annoyance.
Yeah, it does. Like they really dig into how the words we use to describe ads.
It can actually shape how we perceive them.
Okay, I'm interested. So the other speaker, Sarah, she's like, "Hey, John, instead of just saying interruptive,"
Why not try words like intrusive
ooh, intrusive,
or double-edged sword?
double-edged sword.
Those are powerful words, right?
So why does it even matter what words we use? It's just an ad, right?
Well, think about it. Intrusive
Yeah.
is a much stronger statement than just saying interruptive.
Okay, yeah.
Intrusive suggests that these ads are like violating your personal space.
Ooh, I get it.
And double-edged sword, that suggests that there are both
Positives and negatives.
benefits and drawbacks to ads.
Okay. So even if we're not, taking some kind of tests,
The words we choose in everyday conversations still matter.
they shape how we...
Think about and talk about ads.
Interesting. Now let's get into the different types of ads we see every day.
Because there are a lot
The episode mentions everything from those digital ads
on Instagram and YouTube.
to like the old school posters and billboards.
Right, the classics.
But it's funny because even though the ways we see ads have changed,
A lot.
the basic idea behind them is still the same, right?
Oh, absolutely. They all want to
Grab our attention.
and make us remember their product.
Yeah, exactly. Like those digital ads with the catchy music.
Oh, yeah.
You're scrolling through your feed and then...
Yeah, beat music starts playing.
And you just automatically look up, right?
It's like they know how to...
Hook us in.
It's almost Pavlovian, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. And then there's ads that, seem to know exactly what you're thinking about.
Well, the targeted ones.
Yeah, they're a little creepy, but they're so effective.
It's because they're using data about you, your online behavior.
To show you things you're actually interested in.
It's pretty smart, but a little unnerving, right?
A little bit. Okay, so digital ads, we get it. But what about those traditional ads?
Like billboards and posters.
Are those even still effective in this digital age?
They are.
Really?
But in a different way.
Okay, explain.
Think about it. You're walking down a busy street.
Lots of noise, lots of people.
Exactly. And suddenly you see this huge billboard, a striking image and a catchy slogan.
It's hard to ignore.
Right. They're cutting through all the clutter to make sure you see their message.
So digital ads are more like personalized.
While traditional ads are more about making a big statement
Interesting. But both types ultimately want the same thing.
to get you to buy their product.
Now, this brings up a good question.
Hmm.
Are ads actually useful?
It's a tricky one. John in the podcast, he argues that ads can introduce us to new products.
Yeah, things we might actually need or find helpful.
Exactly. But Sarah points out that they can be misleading too.
Like exaggerating benefits or making promises they can't keep.
It's about being a discerning consumer.
Not believing everything you see.
Right, doing your research?
So it's not a simple yes or no answer.
It's more nuanced than that.
Like anything else, there are good ads and bad ads,
And it's up to us to figure out which is which.
which can be tough with so many ads around us all the time.
It's a lot to navigate.
So how has advertising changed over time?
Oh, it's evolved a lot.
Tell me more.
Well, Sarah talks about how advertising used to be much simpler.
Like back in the day.
Yeah, you had TV commercials, radio jingles, print ads.
The good old days.
It was a lot easier to avoid ads if you wanted to.
True, you could just flip the channel or toss the magazine aside.
But these days, it's a whole different ballgame.
The digital world has changed everything.
It really has.
It feels like everywhere we turn, there's an ad.
And they're not just ads, they're personalized ads.
Like they're following us around.
It can feel that way.
Okay, so what's the biggest difference between traditional advertising and this new digital landscape?
Well, one major difference is the level of personalization
Right, those ads that pop up on our social media feeds.
that seem to know exactly what we're interested in.
It's creepy, but also kind of cool. How do they do that?
They're using our data, information about our online activity, to target us.
So they can show us ads that are more likely to grab our attention.
Exactly. It's all about making those ads as effective as possible.
So it's not just about broadcasting a message to the masses anymore.
It's about tailoring the message to specific individuals.
Which raises some questions about privacy and data security, but we'll get to that later.
We will. There's a lot to unpack there.
Another big difference is the level of interactivity.
Oh, absolutely. Traditional ads were mostly passive. You just watched or listened.
But digital ads, you can click on them, watch videos, even play games.
It's all about engagement, keeping you involved.
Which can be really effective. I mean, I've definitely gotten sucked into some of those interactive ads.
They can be very cleverly designed.
So while traditional advertising relied on broad appeal,
Digital advertising is all about creating those personalized, interactive experiences.
it's fascinating how it's all evolved.
It really is. And speaking of evolution, with the rise of social media, we have a whole new category of advertising: influencer marketing.
Oh yeah, the influencers.
Instead of relying on traditional celebrities, brands are partnering with these social media influencers who have huge followings.
And it works because people trust their recommendations.
It feels more authentic than a traditional ad.
Like coming from a friend.
Exactly. But like we mentioned earlier, all this personalization and interactivity does come at a cost.
Our privacy.
That's right. The more targeted an ad is, the more data it requires about us.
Our online behavior, our preferences, our location.
It's a trade-off, and it's important to be aware of the implications.
So it's not just about choosing between a funny jingle or a personalized ad.
It's about understanding how these different forms of advertising work and the systems behind them.
And making informed choices about how we engage with them.
Exactly.
This is getting deep. I'm liking this deep dive already.
There's a lot more to explore.
Lead the way.
Let's do it.
Okay, so we've covered a lot about how advertising has changed and how it's everywhere these days.
It really is pervasive.
But I have to ask, why should we even care about understanding all this advertising stuff? Is it really that important?
You know, it is.
Well, yeah.
Think about it. We're bombarded with ads constantly.
Thousands every day, probably.
Exactly. So understanding how advertising works, it's like self-defense.
Self-defense? Whoa.
Maybe that sounds a little dramatic,
Hello.
but ads are designed to influence us, to get us to do things.
Buy things.
Buy things, vote for someone, even change our opinions.
So by understanding how it all works,
So we can resist that influence.
we become immune to the advertising mind tricks.
It's like seeing how the magic trick is done.
Oh, I like that.
Once you see the strings, the illusion isn't so powerful anymore.
So we're developing what, like advertising awareness?
We call it media literacy. It's the ability to analyze the messages we see and hear.
So it's not just about knowing that an ad is trying to sell us something.
It's about understanding how it's trying to do that.
By appealing to our emotions, maybe.
Exactly. Our emotions, our values, even our insecurities.
Okay, now you're making me feel a little vulnerable here.
Well, think about those ads for beauty products, for example.
Oh, yeah.
They often play on our insecurities about aging or body image.
They show us these perfect models with flawless skin,
And they promise that their product will make us look like that too.
like we can turn back time.
It's all about tapping into our desires to be young, beautiful, confident.
Or those ads for luxury cars, they're not just selling a car, right?
No, they're selling a lifestyle, an image of success and power.
So how do we see through all this? What are the signs that an ad is trying to manipulate us?
One common tactic is the use of emotional appeals.
Oh, I know those, the heart-tugging commercials.
Exactly. They use heartwarming stories, beautiful imagery,
Or
music.
make us feel something.
And when we're feeling emotional, we're less likely to think critically.
So we're more susceptible to their message.
Exactly. Or they might use fear to sell us something.
Like those home security ads with the scary break-in scenes.
Right. They prey on our anxieties about safety and security.
It's sneaky, but it works.
Another common technique is the use of testimonials and endorsements.
Oh, like when a celebrity says they love a certain product?
Exactly. We're more likely to trust a product if someone we admire is using it.
But how do we know if those endorsements are real?
That's the tricky part. Sometimes they're paid for by the brand.
So the celebrity might not actually use the product.
It's always a good idea to be skeptical and do your own research.
Don't just take their word for it.
Right. Look up independent reviews, compare prices, read the fine print.
Good advice. What other sneaky tricks do advertisers use?
They often rely on social proof.
Social proof? What's that?
It's the idea that we're more likely to do something if we see other people doing it.
Oh, like when an ad says, millions have already tried this.
Exactly. They're trying to create a sense of urgency.
Like we're missing out if we don't jump on the bandwagon.
And another common tactic is humor.
Funny ads.
Yeah, funny ads are more memorable, more likely to be shared.
Like those Super Bowl commercials everyone talks about.
Exactly. Humor can make us associate positive feelings with a brand, even if we don't consciously realize it.
So it sounds like we need to be pretty savvy consumers to navigate this whole advertising world.
We do. Luckily, there are resources to help us.
Oh, tell me more.
There are organizations dedicated to media literacy. They have educational materials, tips for parents and educators.
And websites that debunk advertising claims.
Exactly. And of course, we can always rely on our own critical thinking skills.
So before we believe an ad, we should ask ourselves some questions.
Like, what is this ad really selling? Who are they targeting? What techniques are they using?
And do I actually need this product?
Right. Does it align with my values and needs?
Because at the end of the day, we have the power to choose.
We decide what we buy, what we believe, how much influence we allow advertising to have on us.
That's a good reminder. Now, in that IELTS podcast we mentioned, one of the speakers, John, talked about this Christmas ad.
Oh yeah, the one that really stuck with him.
He said it was more about the story and the emotions than the actual product.
That's a great example of how advertising can be effective without being pushy or aggressive.
So they're not always trying to sell us something directly.
Sometimes the goal is to build brand awareness, to create positive associations, to connect with us on an emotional level.
It's a long game, not a quick sale.
Exactly. And that's where storytelling comes in.
Stories. Everyone loves a good story.
We do. And a well-told story can stay with us long after we've seen or heard it.
Like that Christmas ad, John said it was about a little boy saving up to buy his parents a gift.
It focused on the feelings of love and family.
And it created a positive association with the brand, even if we don't remember exactly what they were selling.
That's the power of storytelling.
So it's not always about bombarding us with information or making promises.
Sometimes the most effective ads are the ones that simply tell a good story and leave a lasting impression.
That makes sense. We see a lot of brands using storytelling these days.
It's become a key part of their strategy.
So we've talked about how advertising has changed, how it persuades us, and the importance of being media literate.
We've covered a lot.
But there's one more thing I want to talk about: the ethics of advertising.
Ah, yes. We've touched on some of the ethical concerns, but it's worth exploring further.
Because the advertising industry has a lot of power.
They do. And it's important that they use that power responsibly.
So what are some of the key ethical considerations for advertisers?
Well, first and foremost, transparency.
They need to be upfront about how they're collecting and using our data.
Exactly. Consumers have the right to know what information is being gathered, how it's being used, and who it's being shared with.
And we should have the option to opt out if we want to.
Absolutely. Another important consideration is targeting vulnerable populations. Yes. Children are particularly susceptible to advertising because they haven't developed those critical thinking skills yet.
So advertisers need to be extra careful when marketing to kids.
They shouldn't exploit their innocence or naivety.
And what about advertising products that could be harmful or addictive?
Like tobacco or alcohol. That's another area where ethical considerations are paramount.
Advertisers need to be aware of the potential negative impact their messages could have.
It's not just about making a profit, it's about being responsible and considering the wider societal implications.
So it's about being transparent, respecting consumer privacy, and avoiding harmful practices.
Those are some of the key pillars of ethical advertising.
Now, before we move on, I want to circle back to media literacy.
Sure.
How can we actually develop those media literacy skills to become more discerning consumers?
There are a lot of great resources available, but here are a few key strategies.
Let's hear them.
First, be aware of your own biases. We all have preconceived notions, and those can color how we see advertising.
So we need to be self-aware and question our own reactions.
Exactly. Ask yourself, why am I drawn to this ad? What emotions is it triggering in me?
Good point. What else?
Do your research. Don't just take an ad's word for it. Read independent reviews, compare prices, look for evidence to support their claims.
And be wary of those too good to be true promises.
Right. Those are usually red flags. Also, think critically about the source of the message.
Who's behind the ad? What are their motivations?
And are they a credible source?
It's about being an active participant in the process, not just passively consuming whatever is thrown at us.
Exactly. You have the power to choose what you believe and how you let advertising influence you.
That's a great takeaway. I feel like I'm already starting to see ads in a new light.
That's the goal, to empower you to be a more informed and conscious consumer.
I'm ready for the last part of this deep dive.
Let's do it.
Okay, so we've gone deep into the world of ads.
We have
History, persuasion, ethics, you name it.
a lot to think about.
But where do we go from here? How do we actually use all this knowledge in our daily lives?
Well, let's say you're at the store
Grocery shopping, my favorite.
and you see a big display for a new snack.
Bright colors, catchy packaging.
Claims to be healthy and delicious.
But we know better than to just believe that, right?
Right. Now you have the tools to analyze that ad a little deeper.
Okay, so I'm looking at the snack. What am I thinking about?
You might check the ingredients list, see what's really in there.
Instead of just trusting the healthy label.
Exactly. Look for evidence to back up their claims.
Compare it to other snacks, maybe.
See how it stacks up in terms of nutrition and price.
So I'm using my critical thinking skills.
Being a more conscious consumer.
Not just falling for the marketing hype.
And remember, you always have the power to choose.
I can choose to buy it or not.
You can choose to support brands that you trust.
Brands that are ethical and transparent.
And you can choose to tune out the noise.
Skip those ads online, fast forward through commercials.
Protect your attention.
It's kind of empowering to think about it that way.
It is. You're not just a passive recipient. You have control.
Advertising is powerful, but it's not all powerful.
Right. It's a tool. It
Yeah.
can be used for good or bad.
It can inform us, entertain us,
Inspire us.
but it can also manipulate and exploit us.
The key is to be aware of that potential.
And to use our critical thinking skills to protect ourselves.
To navigate this complex world of advertising.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, let's recap the key takeaways.
Let's do it.
First, language matters.
The words used in ads can shape our perceptions.
Second, advertising has moved from traditional media to the digital world.
It's more personalized, more interactive, but also more invasive.
Third, storytelling is a powerful tool used in advertising.
To create emotional connections and build brand loyalty.
And finally, be a critical consumer.
Don't just absorb the messages, analyze them.
Question them, make informed choices.
Think about the language used, the format, the target audience.
The underlying message.
By understanding how advertising works, you can be a more informed and empowered consumer.
So the next time you see an ad, don't just let it wash over you.
Take a moment to think about it critically.
What is this ad really selling?
How is it trying to make me feel?
Does it align with my values and needs?
Remember, you have the power to choose.
That's a great note to end on. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of advertising. Until next time, stay curious and stay informed.
And stay in control.